All right, so get ready because today we're diving deep into sustainability in the business world. And forget those vague ideas about like doing good,
Yeah.
you know? Today we're going to be talking about how going green can actually help companies gain a real competitive edge.
Yeah, it's really a total shift in perspective. Sustainability is not just about corporate social responsibility anymore. It's really like a core part of building a business that's successful and can adapt to today's market.
Yeah, you're totally right. We've got a ton of research and articles about this,
Mm.
how companies are using sustainability to help the planet, but also their own bottom line. And, attract new customers, motivate employees, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting how this connection between business success and sustainability, it's not even a new thing. Think back to like the Brundtland Report back in 1987. It introduced this idea of sustainable development,
Yeah.
which really laid the groundwork for how businesses should think about their impact on the world.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That report was like a total game changer. And it really started a movement towards businesses being more transparent
Mm.
with their practices. We saw stuff like the Global Reporting Initiative come out of that, which pushed companies to be more open about how they were impacting, the environment and society.
Yeah, that push for transparency was so important because it led to the creation of metrics and frameworks that companies could actually use to measure their sustainability performance
Ugh.
and then hold themselves accountable.
Right. And so here's the really interesting part. Studies are showing that companies that have strong sustainability initiatives, they can actually see their share prices go up. So it's not just good for the planet, it's good for business too.
Yeah, that's where this concept of sustainable competitive advantage comes in. It's about companies creating advantages that last for a long time and are difficult for their competitors to just copy, and that ultimately lead to more profits.
Okay, so it's not just like a quick win. It's like
Hmm.
new idea. They're making choices that help them in the long run.
Exactly, yeah. Like take Unilever, for example. They've included sustainability practices throughout their whole supply chain. They use sustainable palm oil, and they've invested in renewable energy sources. And all of this has helped to reduce their environmental impact, but also it's boosted their brand reputation among consumers because people care more and more about buying sustainable products.
Yeah, see, so they're making choices that are good for the planet,
Yeah,
but that also make good business sense.
exactly. And the benefits go way beyond just share prices going up. We should talk about some of the other advantages that come with embracing sustainability.
Yeah, okay, let's do it. I'm sure everyone listening wants to know more about how going green can actually lead to business success. I guess we should start with the most obvious one, which is saving money.
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest things people get wrong is that sustainability is expensive, but it's actually the opposite. Companies that go green, they often find ways to cut down their operating costs.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about how much energy a company uses. If they switch to energy-efficient technology and practices, they can lower their energy bills a lot. And the same goes for cutting down on waste. By creating less waste and finding ways to recycle and reuse materials, companies can save money on disposal costs, and they might even be able to make some money by selling those recycled materials.
Makes sense. So it's all about being more efficient in a way that helps the environment, but also the company's bottom line.
Exactly. And besides direct cost savings, sustainability can also help companies deal with risks better.
What kind of risks?
Well, for one, environmental regulations are getting stricter pretty much everywhere, so companies that are already working on reducing their impact are less likely to get hit with fines and penalties down the line.
So it's like they're ahead of the game and making sure their business is protected in the future.
For sure. And sustainability can also help protect companies from supply chain problems.
Ah, yeah, that's a big one, especially nowadays with everything so global.
Exactly. When companies source their materials responsibly and create really strong supply chains, they're less likely to experience disruptions caused by things like climate change, or running out of resources, or even social unrest.
So they're basically creating a more stable and secure future for their business.
Exactly. And there's another really important benefit we need to talk about, which is the impact all of this has on customers.
Oh, right. People are definitely becoming way more aware of it, how what they buy impacts the environment and society.
Yeah, definitely. And they're choosing brands that reflect their values more and more. So companies that are focused on sustainability, they're building stronger relationships with their customers, and they're attracting new ones, which of course leads to more
It's
sales.
kind of like a vote of confidence from consumers.
Yeah.
Like they're saying, we trust you, we like what you're doing, we want to support you.
Yeah, exactly. And that trust turns into brand loyalty, which is so important in today's market.
It's more than just a transaction, it's like.
Hmm.
There's shared values and a shared sense of purpose.
You got it. And let's not forget about how this all affects employees. Companies that have strong sustainability programs, they tend to have employees who are more engaged and more satisfied and who stay with the company longer.
Yeah, that makes sense. People want to work for companies that share their values
Mm.
and that are trying to make a positive impact on the world.
It's about attracting the best talent, creating a good work environment, and ending up with a more productive and engaged workforce.
So we've talked about cost savings, dealing with risks, customer loyalty, employee engagement. It really sounds like sustainability is a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, it definitely can be. But we should also be real about the fact that there are challenges too.
Right. I was just thinking that it can't be all easy. Putting sustainability initiatives in place can be complicated, and I'm sure there are some bumps along the way. What are some of the most common challenges companies face?
I think one of the biggest hurdles is that people within the company resist change.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Change can be scary, especially for big companies that are used to doing things a certain way.
Exactly. And employees might not want to do things differently, or they might not believe that sustainability is actually going to help. So to overcome this, companies need to communicate clearly with their employees. They need strong leadership, and they need to make sure employees are a part of the transition.
So they need to help everyone understand why sustainability matters and how everyone can contribute.
Exactly. And another challenge is that there's no standard way to measure sustainability performance.
Right. So if everyone's using different measurements,
Hmm.
it's hard to keep track of progress and compare different companies.
Yeah, that's where collaboration and industry-wide standards come in. There's a growing movement to develop ways to measure sustainability that are clear and measurable and comparable. That way, companies can be held accountable and track their progress in a meaningful way.
So it's about moving past vague promises and setting up a system where you can actually assess and compare how companies are doing on sustainability.
Exactly. And we're seeing a lot of progress and new ideas in this area. There are new frameworks and technologies coming out that can help companies measure their impact on the environment and society in a more effective way.
That's good to hear. So even though there are challenges, it seems like there's real momentum and progress in this area.
Definitely. Speaking of progress, why don't we move on to some real-world examples of companies that are really incorporating sustainability into their operations and seeing the benefits?
I love that. I always love hearing about companies that are actually doing this
Hmm.
and showing that sustainability can really help a business succeed. I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear some inspiring stories.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let's start with a company that's really changing the logistics industry, UPS. They've developed an AI system called Orion that's transforming their delivery routes, which saves them millions of gallons of fuel and cuts down their carbon footprint.
Wow, Orion. Tell me more about how that works.
It's really cool. It uses really advanced algorithms to analyze a ton of data, like traffic patterns, weather conditions, where all the deliveries are. And then it can figure out the most efficient routes for their drivers so they can drive less and use less fuel.
Wow, so they're not just delivering packages, they're delivering sustainability solutions too. That's amazing.
Exactly. And the results are really impressive. Orion has helped UPS save millions of gallons of fuel and significantly reduce their emissions. And on top of that, it's also made them more efficient. And their customers are happier.
That's a fantastic example of how technology can be used to promote sustainability. Do you have any other examples that are really inspiring?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Let's switch gears and look at the healthcare industry. Novo Nordisk is a good example. They've totally adopted this triple bottom line framework where they focus on people, the planet, and profit in everything they do.
I love that. They're taking a holistic approach and considering everyone's well-being, their employees, the environment, society as a whole.
Exactly. They have a ton of sustainability initiatives, from reducing their environmental impact to promoting health and well-being in the communities they operate in. They're a great example of a company that can be successful and responsible at the same time.
Yeah, you can tell they're not just checking boxes. They're making sustainability a core part of their company culture.
Exactly. And their commitment to sustainability has really paid off for them in a lot of ways. They've attracted and kept great employees. Their brand reputation is really strong, and they've built stronger relationships with everyone they work with.
It shows that sustainability can really create positive change, both within a company and in the wider world. Any other examples?
One more. Let's look at the world of waste management and recycling. With SUEZ Recycling and Recovery UK, they've made sustainability a key part of what it's like to work there, and it's led to some really impressive results.
Oh, wow. How so?
Well, they have all kinds of programs to get their employees involved in their sustainability efforts. They offer training on sustainability, and they recognize and reward employees who champion these initiatives.
It's great to see a company that understands that its employees can be a powerful force for change.
For sure. And all of this has been really good for SUEZ. Their employees are more engaged, they have higher retention rates, and overall it's just a more positive and purpose-driven place to work.
These case studies really show that sustainability isn't just a trendy word. It's a powerful strategy that could actually make businesses more successful. But I imagine that putting these initiatives into practice can be pretty complicated. Where should companies even start?
That's a great question. There's no one right answer. Every company is different. But there are some key strategies that companies can use to successfully integrate sustainability into what they do.
Okay, let's get into those. I'm sure everyone listening wants to know how they can start making a difference. Where should they focus their efforts?
Well, one really powerful approach is to think about circular business models. So it's about moving away from that traditional linear model of take, make, dispose, and instead creating closed loop systems.
Okay, so it's about like keeping materials in use for as long as possible, so you reduce waste and make the most of your resources.
Exactly. So instead of products just ending up in a landfill, they're designed to be easily repaired or reused or recycled. And this not only minimizes the impact on the environment, but it can also create new opportunities for innovation and even generate revenue.
Yeah, that sounds like a win-win for business and the planet. Do you have any examples of companies that are doing this well?
Yeah, for sure. Patagonia is a great example. They're known for making really durable, high-quality outdoor clothing, and they have a really strong repair program that encourages customers to fix their clothes instead of throwing them away. And they've also been pioneers in recycling and reselling used garments.
That's awesome. It shows they're really thinking about the whole life cycle of their products. What about other strategies for making sustainability a core part of a business?
Another important one is investing in clean technologies. This could mean switching to renewable energy sources like solar or wind power, or adopting energy-efficient technologies in their manufacturing processes, or even exploring innovative solutions for reducing emissions and waste.
So it's about making sustainability a part of the production process from the very beginning.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just reducing negative impacts. Companies can also look for ways to design products and services that actually have a positive impact.
Oh, interesting. So like products that are designed with sustainability in mind right from the start.
Exactly. This could mean using sustainable materials, or minimizing packaging, or even developing products that address specific environmental or social challenges.
Okay, I see. So it's really a multifaceted approach
Yeah,
where you rethink every step of the process, from how you design the product to how you make it to what happens to it at the end of its life.
exactly. And another really important aspect is transparency in the supply chain. It's not enough for companies to just focus on their own operations. They need to make sure that their suppliers are also operating in ethical and sustainable ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. A company's sustainability efforts are only as strong as the weakest link in their supply chain, right?
Exactly. More and more companies are looking closely at their suppliers and working with them to improve sustainability practices throughout the whole supply chain.
So it's about working together to create a more sustainable and ethical system.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the importance of communicating all of these efforts effectively. Companies need to be open about their sustainability goals, their strategies, and their progress.
Right. It's not enough to just be sustainable. You have to tell people about it and tell your story.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just avoiding greenwashing. It's about having real conversations with stakeholders, addressing their concerns, and building trust through authentic communication.
Okay, all this is making a lot of sense. But before we move on, can we go back to something you mentioned earlier? Sustainable competitive advantage. I think it would be helpful for our listeners to really understand what that means and how it's different from a regular competitive advantage.
Yeah, sure. So a traditional competitive advantage might be something like having lower prices than your competitors, or a better product, or a wider distribution network. These things can be effective, but they might not last very long, or your competitors can easily copy them.
So they might not be sustainable over the long term.
Exactly. A sustainable competitive advantage is based on things that are harder to copy and are more likely to last over time.
Like what?
Well, sustainability itself can be a sustainable competitive advantage. As consumers become more aware of environmental issues, they're going to be looking for brands that share their values. So companies that are truly committed to sustainability, and that can show their positive impact, are more likely to win over those consumers and keep them coming back.
So it's about building trust and showing that you're really doing what you say you're doing. What else?
Innovation is another key factor. Companies that invest in developing sustainable technologies and products and processes are creating an advantage that's hard to copy.
Right, they're staying ahead of the curve and coming up with solutions that meet the changing needs of both consumers and the planet.
Exactly. And strong stakeholder relationships are also important. Companies that work closely with their employees, their suppliers, the communities they operate in, and their investors in a way that's transparent and collaborative, they're building trust and goodwill, that can turn into a long-term advantage.
So it's about moving beyond just transactions
Yeah.
and building real partnerships based on shared values.
Exactly. And all of these things contribute to a strong brand reputation, which is so valuable in today's market.
It makes sense. If a company is known for being sustainable, that can attract customers, investors, and talented employees, which all contributes to long-term success.
Exactly. So let's talk about the future. What are some of the key trends that are shaping the world of sustainability?
Okay, I'm ready to look ahead. What does the future hold for sustainable businesses?
One big trend is the growing importance of ESG metrics, which stands for environmental, social, and governance.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Can you explain why those metrics are so important?
Sure. ESG metrics give us a way to assess and measure a company's sustainability performance across a bunch of different factors. And these metrics are becoming really important for investors because they're using them to decide where to put their money.
So investors aren't just thinking about financial returns anymore. They're looking for companies that are also making a positive impact.
Exactly. And this is causing a big shift in how people invest. Companies that are doing well on ESG factors are attracting more investment, while companies that are lagging behind are feeling the pressure to improve.
It sounds like ESG metrics are a powerful tool for encouraging companies to do the right thing. What other trends are you seeing?
Another important trend is the increasing focus on supply chain transparency.
Right. We talked about that as a strategy for integrating sustainability, but it seems like it's also becoming a broader trend.
Exactly. Consumers are getting more and more curious about where their products come from and how they're made. They want companies to be more transparent about their supply chains so they can be sure that the products they're buying are sourced ethically and sustainably.
It's about knowing the story behind the product and making choices that align with your values.
Exactly. And this demand for transparency is pushing companies to look more closely at their supply chains and work with their suppliers to improve practices and put systems in place that allow them to track products from where they originate to their final destination.
So it's about creating a more responsible and accountable system from the very beginning to the very end.
Exactly. Another trend that's worth noting is the rise of circular economy initiatives. Governments, businesses, and organizations all over the world are starting to see the potential of circular models to reduce waste, conserve resources, and create economic opportunities.
So it's not just a niche idea anymore. It's becoming more mainstream.
Exactly. We're seeing more and more policies, programs, and investments that are aimed at supporting the transition to a circular economy.
That's exciting. It sounds like we're moving towards a more sustainable and efficient way of doing business.
Yeah. And another trend we're seeing is a greater focus on climate resilience. As the effects of climate change become more obvious, companies are realizing they need to adapt to things like extreme weather, resource scarcity, and other climate-related risks.
So it's about making sure their businesses can survive and thrive, even as the climate changes.
Exactly. Companies are starting to do climate risk assessments, develop adaptation plans, and explore innovative solutions for reducing their climate impact.
It's clear that sustainability isn't just a static thing. It's always evolving. Yeah. And companies need to be able to adapt and think ahead to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really important part of this conversation, the role of innovation in driving sustainability.
Right. We've talked about innovation a lot today, but I think it deserves a deeper look. What are some of the most exciting innovations happening in the world of sustainable business right now?
Well, we're seeing incredible progress in areas like renewable energy, sustainable materials, and waste management. For example, advancements in solar and wind technology are making renewable energy more affordable and accessible than ever before.
So are we moving towards a future powered by clean energy?
It's definitely starting to look that way. And in the world of materials, we're seeing amazing innovations in things like bio-based plastics, recycled materials, and even materials grown in labs that can replace traditional materials that use up a lot of resources.
Wow. So we're not just reducing our dependence on limited resources. We're also creating new materials that are better for the environment.
Exactly. And in the field of waste management, we're seeing new recycling technologies, composting systems, and even ways to turn waste into energy. So we're basically turning trash into something valuable.
It sounds like we're really moving towards that circular economy, where we create as little waste as possible and reuse resources over and over again.
Exactly. And these innovations aren't just happening in labs, they're being used in the real world and making a real difference towards a more sustainable future.
It's amazing to see how human ingenuity is being used to make the world a better place. But I imagine it's not always easy to bring these innovations to market and scale them up. What are some of the challenges companies face in that process?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is often funding. Developing and scaling up new sustainable technologies can be really expensive, and it can be hard for companies to get the money they need, especially in the early stages.
So it's like a catch-22. You need money to develop the innovations, but you need to show that the innovations will work to get the money.
Exactly. And another challenge is getting consumers to adopt these new products. Even if a company comes up with a great sustainable product, it won't be successful unless people actually buy it. Sometimes people are resistant to change, or they don't believe that these new solutions actually work.
So companies need to build trust, educate consumers,
Yeah.
and show them why these innovations are worthwhile.
Exactly. And another challenge is dealing with all the regulations. Sustainability regulations and standards are always changing, and it can be hard for companies to keep up and make sure they're complying, especially if they're operating in multiple countries.
So they need to stay informed, be adaptable, and work closely with regulators to make sure their innovations meet the latest standards.
Exactly. And sometimes there can be resistance to change within the company itself. Even if the company's leaders are committed to sustainability, there might be pushback from employees or departments
Yep.
who are used to doing things the old way.
So it's about creating a culture where people are encouraged to try new things.
Exactly. To overcome all of these challenges, companies need strong leadership, strategic planning, and effective communication. And they need to be willing to embrace change and take risks.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the history of sustainability to the benefits for businesses, from the challenges of implementation to the exciting innovations that are shaping the future. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more important aspect: the ethical considerations of sustainability.
Yeah, that's an important point. We often talk about sustainability in terms of environmental and economic benefits, but it's important to remember that it also has a strong ethical dimension.
What are some of the key ethical things companies should be thinking about as they navigate the world of sustainability?
Well, one important thing is making sure that their sustainability efforts are genuine and not just a form of greenwashing. Companies need to be honest about what they're doing, avoid making misleading claims, and actually follow through on their commitments with real actions.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And another ethical consideration is fairness and equity in the supply chain. Companies need to make sure that their suppliers are treating their workers fairly, paying them a living wage, and providing safe working conditions.
Right. It's about making sure that your sustainability efforts aren't harming vulnerable workers or communities.
Exactly. And environmental justice is another important aspect. Companies need to be aware of how their operations might impact different communities and make sure that their sustainability efforts aren't disproportionately burdening or harming certain groups.
So it's about taking everyone's needs into account and making sure that sustainability efforts are inclusive and fair.
Exactly. And another ethical consideration is biodiversity conservation. Companies need to think about how their operations might be affecting ecosystems and species and take steps to minimize their impact and protect biodiversity.
It's about recognizing that we need to protect our planet's natural systems.
Exactly. As companies navigate the complex world of sustainability, it's really important to have ongoing conversations with stakeholders, get different perspectives, and be willing to learn and adapt as new challenges and ethical considerations come up.
So ethical considerations aren't just a box to check. It's an ongoing process of learning and improving.
Exactly. And by integrating ethical considerations into their sustainability strategies, companies can not only do good for the planet and society, but also improve their reputation, build trust with stakeholders, and create a more sustainable and just future for everyone.
This has been a really insightful look at sustainability as a competitive advantage. We've covered a lot, but I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
It's true. Sustainability is a huge and complex field, and there's always more to learn and explore.
But I think anyone listening to this is probably walking away with a much better understanding of how sustainability can really create positive change. for businesses and for the world.
Yeah, I hope so. And what's really cool is that we're just getting started. There's so much more to come in the field of sustainable business. There's so much room for innovation and collaboration and progress.
So what's the main takeaway here? What do companies really need to understand about sustainability today?
I think the main thing is that sustainability isn't optional anymore. It's not just a nice thing to do if you have the time and resources. It's something that companies have to prioritize if they want to succeed. Companies that ignore sustainability are taking a big risk.
Yeah, they risk falling behind their competitors, losing customers, hurting their reputation, and ultimately becoming unsustainable themselves.
Exactly. Sustainability isn't just about reducing your environmental impact. It's also about building a business that can adapt to change and thrive in the future.
It's about creating value for everyone involved, your employees, your customers, the communities you operate in, your investors, and of course the planet.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that sustainability isn't a finish line you cross. It's a journey. It's an ongoing process of learning and adapting and always trying to do better.
So where do we go from here? What are some specific things companies can do to embrace sustainability
Yeah.
and make it a core part of how they do business?
Well, the first thing is that company leaders need to be on board. Sustainability needs to be a part of the company's vision and values and goals.
Right, it has to start at the top, and it has to be a priority for every part of the company.
Exactly. And it's so important to get employees involved at every level. You want to create a culture where everyone feels responsible for sustainability, not just the people who are specifically working on it.
Yeah, give employees the tools and resources they need
Hmm.
and recognize and reward their efforts.
Exactly. Another key step is to figure out where you stand on sustainability. Do an assessment, figure out what your company's impact is, set specific goals for improvement, and develop a plan to achieve those goals.
So it's about knowing your starting point, aiming high, and having a roadmap to get there.
Exactly. And you can't do it alone. Collaboration is key. Talk to your suppliers, your customers, the communities you operate in, your investors. Understand their perspectives, address their concerns, and build partnerships for positive change.
You know, we've talked about collaboration a lot today, and it seems like that's a really important part of making real progress on sustainability.
It definitely is. The challenges we're facing are complex and interconnected, and no one company can solve them on their own. It takes collective action, sharing knowledge, and a willingness to work together.
And lastly, don't be afraid to try new things.
Explore new technologies, experiment with different approaches, be a leader in creating positive change in your industry. There are so many opportunities for innovation in the field of sustainable business. Embrace those opportunities, and you might be surprised to find that sustainability becomes your biggest competitive advantage.
That's a great point. This has been a really eye-opening conversation. I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to take action.
I hope so too. Whether you're a CEO or a manager or just starting out in your career, everyone has a role to play in creating a more sustainable future.
And remember, sustainability isn't just about doing good. It's about doing well by doing good. It's about creating a world where businesses can thrive, not in spite of sustainability, but because of it.
I couldn't agree more.
This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into sustainability. As a competitive advantage, we hope you found it valuable and inspiring.
We encourage you to keep thinking about this, share your thoughts, and continue the conversation. Let's work together to create a more sustainable future for everyone.
Until next time.
See you then.